Hello, and welcome to this overview of the Wallflowers historical romance book series by Lisa Kleypas. I'm Olivia, your new favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. So here's the series overview. The Wallflower series was published between 2004 and 2008 and is one of the regularly recommended series for historical romance readers. We have four main books, plus one that's considered a prequel, plus one more that is a holiday novella follow up. The series mainly focuses on the four female friends with poor marital prospects who team up and decide to help each other find matches. This series is often discussed when people say that authors have edited their work in later releases, and I'll talk about those changes that I know about with the specific books. So, first up, we have Again the Magic, and this is considered to be the prequel to the Wallflower series, but can be read as completely standalone. So, we have Aileen Marsden, who has been in love with the stable boy John McKenna since they were young. When her father, the Earl of Westcliff, finds out about their relationship, he forbids them to see each other and sends McKenna away. And he does this in a way where Aileen pretty much has to tell the man that she was just toying with him and she has to be really mean about it, otherwise, he won't go. And so now we're 12 years later. The old Earl has died. Eileen's brother, Marcus, is the new Lord Westcliff. And Eileen and their sister Livia are unmarried and living at the estate. Now, a group of wealthy Americans has arrived for a hunting party and to gain Lord Westcliff's business partnership. One of those wealthy visitors, John McKenna. He has been haunted by Eileen all these years, believing that she had used him and had never loved him. He comes to take his revenge by betting her and getting her out of his system. Eileen has her own issues. Not long after McKenna left, she was in a kitchen fire that left her legs scarred and disfigured. Believing that she'll never be able to find love in her scarred state, she continues to let McKenna believe that she's only interested in a physical relationship and that she does not love him. Meanwhile, another wealthy man, Gideon Shaw, has caught the attention of Livia, who has not been out in society since the death of her fiance a couple years ago and some related scandal afterwards. Gideon has his own problems with being an alcoholic, but since this is a secondary romance in the story, they deal with that pretty neatly. Overall, the story sets up the grandeur of the Westcliff estate, which is a key location in future Wallflower books. So, book one is Secrets of a Summer Night. We start with Annabelle Peyton, who is stuck being a wallflower on the sidelines of the ball. Her family has no money, she has no dowry, and no aristocratic gentleman will even look her way. She befriends a few other wallflowers, Evie Jenner and Lillian and Daisy Bowman, and they decide to help each other get husbands. This is pretty much the last chance for Annabelle to find a husband. They're at a house party at Lord Westcliffe's estate. While Annabelle has her sights set on a titled gentleman, we have Simon Hunt, an untitled but wealthy businessman, who's trying to pursue Annabelle. Throughout their stay at the estate, Annabelle grows more attracted to Simon and starts to see like a gentler side to him. Now, although Simon has previously stated that he's only interested in Annabelle as a mistress, he's quick to change his mind when he finally catches Annabelle's attention. Now, this is a book where a previous scene was cut from later versions of the story. I borrowed the ebook from the library, and so I have read the newest version. I have heard that in an older version, there's a prologue where Simon and Annabelle meet at a matinee in London, and he kisses her without her consent. Now, I'm not sure why this scene was simply cut and not rewritten in some way, but it did make the book a little bit awkward to start with because I didn't know why Annabelle disliked Simon so much at the beginning of the book. I suppose you could just presume he's a rake and improperly propositions Annabelle, but in case you've read a different version than other people have, that's the missing scene. Next up is It Happened One Autumn, and you start to see that the four books in the series follow seasons in their titles. So, what's with all these house parties at Lord Westcliffe's estate? I'm not sure, but our wallflowers are back at Lord Westcliffe's house, and this time Lillian Bowman is looking for love. Now, Marcus, the Earl himself, and Lillian have an extremely antagonistic relationship. He is stern and serious, while she is rude and uncultured, especially being the daughter of an American businessman. For some reason, though, he can't keep his hands off of her. And since Marcus's two sisters married outside of their class, it's up to Marcus to marry well and provide an heir to the earldom. Knowing that Marcus would never be interested in marriage, Lillian accepts the attentions of Lord St. Vincent, who we hear has money troubles and needs to marry rich. There's a boatload of drama here with St. Vincent, who becomes sort of the villain of the story, with ultimately Lillian needing to be rescued by Marcus. Now, this is another book that gets a rough editing in future versions. There's apparently a scene in the original version where Lillian is completely drunk and Marcus proceeds to have sex with her, even though she isn't quite conscious of what's happening in the room. I did not read that older version, so I don't know exactly how it plays out, but that's what I've heard. In the later version, when Lillian is drunk, Marcus just sends her to bed chastely. This one is definitely a concerning area of consent, and I'm totally fine with the change. Others may not like when authors update or change their work, but I think that if the author wants to and has the ability to edit things to reflect more current sensibilities, I'm not going to argue with it. And I think that's totally fine. Just to be aware so that when people are talking about different scenes that you may not have seen, or you picked up an older copy at a used bookstore, that's where the discrepancies are. The third book is Devil in Winter. So we have our wallflower Evie Jenner, who is desperate to escape her overbearing guardians. She knows the only way to do that and to see her father before he dies is to get married. So Evie proposes a marriage of convenience to an equally desperate gentleman, Sebastian, otherwise known as Lord St. Vincent. So after their elopement, they return to Evie's father's gambling club, where he's basically on his deathbed. Evie had assumed that she and Sebastian would lead completely separate lives after he collects on her dowry and money. So she is surprised to find him integrating himself into running the club. Guess it gives him some purpose or work ethic or something. And as Evie tends to find herself in peril from others, like those overbearing guardians, Sebastian is compelled to protect her. Now, their marriage here may turn out to be more emotionally entangled than initially intended. Now, Evie, of all the wallflowers, is my favorite because she's often overlooked with her stuttering and stammering, but she is definitely more strong and savvier than she first appears. This one gets a lot of positive reviews for the reformed rake trope. St. Vincent is essentially a villain towards Evie's friend Lillian in the previous book, and Evie totally takes advantage of that desperation for her own purposes. It's crazy to see the amount of turnaround that St. Vincent goes through over the course of the book when you slowly see him fall in love with his own wife. We also get to meet Cam Rohan in this book, a young man who works with Evie's father. While there is one short chapter where it seems like he might be set up as a love interest for our last wallflower, Daisy, that turns out not to be the case. We do see Cam again in the first book of the Hathaway series. So if you keep reading within Lisa Kleypas's universe, you will see what happens to him. Book 4 is Scandal in Spring, and this is Daisy Bowman's story, the last remaining unwed wallflower. Now, Daisy's father wants to arrange her marriage to his favorite employee, Matthew Swift. Daisy opposes the match, believing that Matthew is too similar to her father, serious, business minded, and cold. When she meets Matthew again, now somehow they're still at Westcliffe's house, she finds him attractive and starts to see the benefits of a serious, dependable personality. Now, Matthew has been in love with Daisy for basically ever, but also refuses the marriage idea because of secrets from his own past. And we get to check in with the other wallflowers here and their spouses. There's a little bit of drama with Lillian being pregnant and needing to find a doctor, but Matthew kind of pulls through in that case. And lastly, we have A Wallflower Christmas. It is a holiday novella. We consider it book 5. So, Rafe Bowman, the brother to Lillian and Daisy, is being matched with Lady Natalie by their collective parents. Now, when he arrives in England to meet the lady, he is distracted by her cousin and companion Hannah instead. So, Rafe needs to choose between the future his father planned out for him with Natalie and the desire that he has for Hannah instead. Now, the plot moves pretty quickly here. Also get to see glimpses of how life is faring for our favorite wallflowers. It's short, sweet, Christmas time story. So it's a nice little extended epilogue for the Wallflower series. Overall, I think this one is a classic that anyone should at least be aware of if they're a historical romance reader. Thank you so much for watching this video. Links to all the books I've discussed are in the description box. Like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.